Mm,
Did you know that most food you buy is genetically modified? Do you know what that means or whether or not you should be worried? I think that we all need to be cautious when it comes to GMOs, and for that to happen, companies really need to start labeling their products as such. Now, to have an understanding of why we need to be cautious and why companies need to be labeling their GMO products as such, you first need to have an understanding of what exactly GMOs are. To become a genetically modified organism, plants are modified in labs to enhance certain traits, such as increasing resistance to herbicides. Increasing certain traits used to be done through breeding. However, this was too time-consuming and not always accurate enough, so genetic engineering is now used. In April of 2000, Deborah Whitman wrote on CSA.com in her article, Genetically Modified Foods, Harmful or Helpful, that genetic engineering can create plants with the exact desired trait very rapidly and with great accuracy. An example of how this is accomplished is isolating a certain gene, say a drought-resistant gene, from one plant and placing it into another plant. Now the second plant is drought-resistant. Plant geneticists also use non-plant organisms. The best known example of that is BT, Bacillus thuringiensis. BT produces crystal proteins which are lethal to insect larvae. The crystal proteins have been placed in corn to produce its own pesticides to fight off insects. There are, of course, other ways food is genetically modified, but these are the best known ways. Now, the major reason why GMOs are used is because it's hard and time-consuming to plant things with so many other things to worry about. GMO is being used for pest and disease resistance, and herbicide, cold, and drought tolerance. Although GMO plants are able to do all these things, there are many concerns and criticisms associated with them. There are environmental concerns with harm to other organisms and genes transferring to other non-GMO plants through means such as crossbreeding and pollinating. And of course, the biggest concern with GMOs are the health risks. When GMOs began, there wasn't really any testing or research to make sure the food was okay to consume. In the 2011 documentary, David vs. Monsanto, Percy Schmeiser, a Canadian non-GMO farmer, claimed that the Canadian government did no testing on it. Instead, they took Monsanto's word for it, who claimed the plants were substantially equivalent to non-GMO crops and posed absolutely no health risks. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, followed suit and did no testing either. Japanese scientists are the only ones to really start researching GMOs. Japan has been resistant to allowing any GMO crops into their country. However, GMOFreeRegions.org states that in February of 2012, Japan approved its first shipment of genetically modified rainbow papayas from Hawaii. After many tests to see if they were harmful, Japan agreed to sell them in their markets. However, this is the only gene-altered fruit sold in Japan, as they still do not trust GMOs. As GMO plants increase throughout the world, so does concern for them. Now, although nothing has come out that directly relates GMO food to diseases or harm to humans, we need to all still be wary of what we're consuming. This is genetically modified food that has never gone through any in-depth research and testing. We have no idea whether or not this could cause long-term harm. I do not think we're anywhere close to getting rid of GMOs. However, I think that as a first step, companies can start labeling their GMO products as such so we at least know what we're buying. There has been some action taken to enforce GMO labeling. In January of 2012, Sarah Novak for HowStuffWorks.com wrote under the article, Why is America one of the only industrialized nations with no GMO labeling? That 30 countries have significant restriction on GMOs. In Europe, all products with more than 0.9% GMO are labeled as such. However, the U.S. has no such standards. Some states have tried introducing labeling on GMO foods, such as California. Richard Dahl wrote on the website Environmental Health Perspectives under his 2012 article, To Label or Not to Label, that in November 2012, California voters would decide whether or not food containing genetically modified organisms must be labeled. However, this law was never passed. Later in the article, Richard Dahl went on to say the initiative set off a heated battle in California. The pro-labeling side claimed that because the safety of genetically modified food was unknown, we have the right to know what we're consuming. on the opposing side, mainly made up of mainstream agribusinesses, the grocery industry, and biotech industry, would have to deal with the cost of new labeling and potentially losing customers who don't know what the labels mean and whether or not they should be concerned. Richard Dahl went on to write about what the opposing sides were specifically saying. Spokeswoman Kathy Fairbanks for the Coalition Against the Deceptive Food Labeling Scheme said that this would, quote, force California families to pay hundreds of dollars more in higher food prices, would cost millions in government bureaucracy, and would not provide any health and safety benefits. On the other hand, Stacy Malkin for the pro-labeling organization California Right to Know stated that there was no evidence to support Fairbanks' claim. And, quote, many scientists are saying that in fact of scientific uncertainty, labeling is an important tool to help track potential health risks. Whether or not we should have GMO food or labeling is an ongoing controversy I don't see any ending to anytime soon. I personally believe that we should not be consuming genetically modified food that we know barely anything about. But even if GMOs don't go away, we still have the right to know when we're consuming them. Thank you.